It is the Practical Prayer Podcast on New Thought Media Network. I am Bill. That is Carol. Happy federal holiday.
Yeah. Anything happening on this federal holiday? I almost missed it.
Well,
You
yeah,
know.
that's the magic of working from home, yeah. So
Yeah.
I kind of in my head knew that it was coming up, but in the same way that I refuse to say Gulf of America, it's a federal holiday. Maybe Lincoln's birthday.
And- oh
You want me to start?
no, just this is interesting.
Interesting. Interesting.
It is. It is. It's quite a challenge. What we do, in trying to navigate the proper way to have a conversation and still be helpful and authentic, but without, disturbing. It's just the most interesting experience.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So
Yeah.
we'll change the subject. Happy Valentine's Day. That was Friday. Did you do anything to celebrate Valentine's Day?
Yes, yes. We went to the seafood buffet at the Hard Rock.
Ah,
And yeah, we went, we were smart. We went the day before. So we would be there, without bumping into stuff. It was just amazing. And the ocean was, I got to kick that in. We had a
oh
great
yeah.
seat, and the ocean was just really just tossing and just going all over the place. And then my imagination goes with it. It was just great.
Now the Hard Rock that you go to is the one in Atlantic City, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
so it's
yeah,
right there at the ocean,
yes.
and yeah, fascinating and exciting. I went to the ocean, but I went for Valentine's Day the week before
Hmm.
because that also happens to be my anniversary, and I learned early on don't try and compete with the amateurs for my anniversary.
I hear you.
And it worked.
I,
It worked just fine. So we did not get a chance to chat before we went online. By the way, let me do the usual introductions. I got ahead of myself. Welcome to the folks who are joining us on New Thought Media Network. This is the recording session for the Practical Prayer Podcast. After we get done with this, we will send it off to Editor Land, and then it will show up in the world of podcasts in a week or so. And in the meantime, you are welcome to participate. If you put a comment in on the social media where you are watching now, then we can respond in real time. The other possibility is if you don't have access to that, you can go to the website, which is bethelight.com, be-the-light.com, as it say over there. And there's a section for the Practical Prayer Podcast, and you can put the same sort of question in there, and we will respond to it. And you can take part in the program that way. And basically what we do is we get together every week and we talk about principle, practical prayer, new thought, and whatever happens to be on Carol's mind. As you heard in the intro, I got some questions, and seems to be quite a few of them. So,
wow.
yeah.
How many, how many, what episode is this? Like 170 something?
Oh no, we're at 187 today.
Okay, 187. So I've had at least 187 questions, not to mention the ones that I mix in.
Yep, and I probably have one or two answers, but I keep on applying the answers. Maybe it's a dozen answers. So, what's the question going to be today?
Okay, so we are individualized expressions of God.
Okay.
So I get that 100%. There's one little tiny thing that kind of throws me, and that is if if we're individualized expression, that word individualized sometimes implies difference or separation.
Hmm.
And I know that that's not right, but I'm struggling to try to understand the concept. So because it's easy when you look at each of us, we're very different.
Mm-hmm.
And if God is the individualized expression of us, I understand that God is expressing through us. but in a sense, is God expressing through our individual characters, personality, gifts, and all of that kind of thing. So, how do we reconcile that?
This is going to be fun. This is going to be
Uh,
fun because you managed to have a relatively simple question that has an awful lot of nuance behind it. So now I'm looking forward to jumping into that.
okay.
So, shall we go ahead and start the podcast?
I'm anxious to hear,
Let's
eager
jump.
to hear.
Let's jump in.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony. My microphone keeps doing this.
Well, then you get to fix it. And that, that's the same thing as is in the teaching. You get to look a fact in the face or a microphone and the wobble and know something better. So,
Yeah.
and at some point you'll get a little screwdriver and tighten up the mic stand thing, and everything will be right in the world.
Okay.
See? Then I'm assigning you homework and telling you to get tools.
Listen, I got a tool thing that's all mine,
All right.
I don't know if I ever told you I love tools.
Oh, well then you're in shape because this is a relatively simple tool that should be right up near the top of the toolbox.
It is.
And I am very much looking forward to the conversation today because you have brought up something that is fundamental to the teaching, and that is the distinction between individualized and separate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the way that I understood the question is that and I love the whereases that you're doing. Usually we get tripped up in the whereases where that's part of the assumption, but you went right to principle. We claim that there is one divine power and presence that is revealing itself as all of its creation. Everything is that one taking its own form. So we are each individualized expressions of the one. So we are that one, but we are also individualized. And the question comes up when we're talking about our connection with the one and our connection with each other and the apparent separation. How do you reconcile those? Mm-hmm. Did I get it right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Anything to add to the whereas?
Well, the word dualism comes in, and that's part of what stirs up the pot a little bit. So if you could just refer to that in your response, that would be great.
Okay. I have this absolute lifelong experience and belief that if I decide to lift my hand up, then my hand is going to go up. Mm-hmm. And if I decide to lift your hand up, then nothing's going to happen the same way. So that's where our idea of separation comes from, is that there's stuff that is definitely and clearly inside of my domain that is physically and experientially accessible to me, and there are other things which are not. And so there's this line between what's me or mine and what's not, what's somebody else's, yours or anybody else's. And there's a big planet that we live on, and there are other planets in our solar system, and there are other solar systems in our galaxy, and there's more planets and more planets and more galaxies, and there's nothing I'm doing here that I have any reason to believe is affecting anything anywhere else other than inside of my little local sphere here on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. So how the heck can we be all aspects of one infinite creative power?
I'm waiting.
I was looking forward to if you had a rebuttal to the where I went with the question.
No.
And the point is, we are individualized, and we get to make our own choices, take our own actions, and learn stuff on our own. And the notion behind New Thought is that the system is set up that way to allow us to experience life as an individual. So there are people who have spoken with non-corporeal beings. You know, there's the people who are channels and are communicating with one or multiple intelligent life forces that are not present on planet Earth. And there was a story some number of years ago about, you know, this channeled presence once asked the person they were channeling with. They said, like, the sense of separation there is just awesome. Do you mind if we inhabit your sensory system so we can see what it's like? And the person who's channeled says, that's a weird question. Sure, go for it. And so they did. And so this infinite intelligence that is connected with the one and knows that it's connected with the one and knows that there's no separation took a look from inside the medium's body. Mm-hmm. And they got done and they said, wow, that illusion is so good. We absolutely see how you believe that you're separate. It is set up so well to give you that sense of separation, that you're isolated, that you're on your own, that you're not connected to the one. Didn't go into why that was happening, but just the observation that it's an illusion and it's a really good illusion. And so my idea is, if that's what the illusion is, and the project is to make us as individualized expressions of one infinite creative power, one divine source, one love, one mind, to make us believe that we're separate, that's got to be part of the program. That's got to be part of the reason that we're here.
To make us believe that we are separate.
Making us believe that we are separate is crucial to whatever else is going on. So in order to let us live our lives and do the things that we're doing, we have to believe that we're separate. And my thought about this, and I could be completely wrong, but it's the one that I've been working with for a while, and it seems to be at least an interesting hypothesis, is that we get to have experiences in our sense of separation, which we wouldn't be able to have if we were aware that we were part of the one. For example, seeing somebody across the room and falling in love. If you know that you're one, then there's nothing to see. There's nowhere to fall. And there's no surprise to be had. You know, the same thing for, you know, I've told the story before, you know, it's impossible to surprise the infinite. You know, we have humor. I can say something, and right up until the last second, you think I'm headed in one direction, and I'll change directions. And it's funny and surprising and entertaining because you didn't know it was coming. Mm-hmm. And it is the experience of separation that lets us have those distinct experiences and kind of bounce off of each other as we go through the process of having a life and creating a world and an experience. So maybe it's just an exercise in what does it feel like to be an individual?
Okay, I got to work with that a little bit because the way I've been trying to feel this out is that if we're the same, you know, if I look at you, I see aspects of myself, probably. And I really, you know, I parse things down just to, and what is it that I'm seeing? Okay, let me say this. My sons were living with me for a little bit. And some things that I would see at first, like the first 2 weeks, freaked me way out. Just like, what? But then as I calmed myself down and whatever, I saw me. I saw myself in those aspects that were making me crazy, as well as the others. It's easy to see the stuff that you like about yourself in somebody else. It's
Right.
just, oh, yeah, especially. So I'll just keep with my sons. This is Michael is like me in this way, Jonathan's like me in this way, and whatever. So that's okay. But when the other stuff started showing up, then I'm like, where did that come from? So I could say, well, yeah, that part came from my husband. That's his side, which
It's
is,
his fault.
yeah, it's his fault. But then and whether, he's got to look at his own whatever. But I said, no, let me pull this back because I'm seeing myself even in these things that I'm not fond of. And when I stood still and I looked, I saw it. I just saw it. In each one of them, they're whatever. Now, where does the individualization come from? I could see the oneness and the sameness, but the individualization seemed to come in the way they chose to respond to a given situation that may have been the same situation that I'm in the past or currently. So they, I'm not sure if I want to use this word, but I can't think of another one. They individuated by like their personality,
Yeah.
just so when I saw that, I thought, okay, I see it. And then I practiced looking at it everywhere. What is it that attracted me to befriend a certain person? What attracted me to agree that you were going to be my teacher? Really?
You had no choice. Yeah.
Well, I told you, I put it out there, and
Right.
I believe, Spirit, here you come.
Right.
Now, I could have ordered up something else. Not that you're a problem. I'm just saying.
It remains to be seen. We're only on episode 187.
I know. So if I wasn't committed to Spirit, responding to me and not playing games and all that. So I said, okay, well, this is the one. So what is it about you that I saw me in that made me comfortable with this? I can go with this. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And for me, that brings up some other questions because, we have been doing this dance together for several years, and I'm happy with the way that it's going. And you keep coming back, so you seem to be happy with the way that it's going as well. Does that mean this was the only possibility that was open to us? Well, and the answer is there's 8 billion people on the planet. And it's possible that if this one had slipped by, then there would have been another connection with somebody else for either of us. Something would have happened. And when you think about that, you everybody wants to grow up and get married and live a life and have a family, but they only get to have one. There's like this one committed relationship. Some people get to have a half a dozen, but it's still not 8 billion. So we are constantly narrowing down the universe of possibilities and pursuing whatever path seems to be appropriate or uplifting or good for us at the particular time. And I think it is our ability to feel empathy and compassion, to understand that there are other paths that we could have taken. And there's nothing wrong with those other paths. And there's other people who are having their own experiences which are different than our experiences. And rather than judge them as being other, and saying, well, that's not for me, to understand, good, it's for them. And, we all get to individualize ourselves differently. And isn't it wonderful that there is that much richness in this infinite creative power, this one power, to be able to create so much different stuff?
Yeah, I was listening and I'm thinking like maybe I'm narrowing it too much, but I'm not. It works for me, I think. It's like purpose in it.
Yeah.
When I met you, I said this is the guy you sent. This is the teacher you sent.
Really?
Well, and I didn't mean it the way it sounded.
No,
but
I know exactly how you feel. It's like, because we've talked about that. It's like, really?
yeah,
That's
okay.
that's what I was asking for? Jeez, okay.
Well, I was asking for whatever, the content or whatever. The package might have surprised me a bit, but then when I thought about it, I said, well, no, I get that too. So let's go. Because here's now, listen, okay. I always have sometimes it's a plan, but I have a vision. I see something. Now it changes, but there's something there. And I assume this to be that, a step toward that. Not the end, but what is necessary at this moment. That's the way I look at it. And it's God in you that I needed to connect with. The God in me had to connect with the God in you to steer this. I don't know what you're doing. That was not important. That was not, and I mean this respectfully, that was not important to me. What I asked for appeared, and it is my responsibility then, if I so choose, to move forward with that which was sent to me. So it had to be, you had to, as the God in you, had to be responding to what I need to get toward what I'm looking for or what I want. Yeah. Or, the nice term, my desired reality.
There you go. You have reminded me of an old joke, which I'm going to tell before we take a break. And the guy's walking along the edge of a cliff, and he stumbles and he falls over the cliff, huge, like 1,000-foot cliff. And he manages to grab onto a little tree on his way down. And so he's dangling there. There's a tree growing out of the side of the cliff. There's no way he can imagine what's going to happen. So all he can see above him is sky. And he says, if there's anybody up there, please tell me what I should do. And clear as a bell, he hears this voice that says, let go. Let go. And he thinks for a second, he looks down, he looks back up, he says, is there anybody else up there?
Anybody else? Yeah.
So it is possible to resist when the teacher shows up and it's not what we had in mind. You got any other teachers? Could we send somebody else over this way, maybe? And I get it. Let's take a break, and when we continue, we're going to talk about raindrops and rainbows.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marchiony's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
Having a wonderful conversation about the difference between individualized, as in individualized expressions of one infinite power, and separate. And it has so far been a wonderful conversation. And before the break, I promised that I would bring the conversation around to raindrops and rainbows, which seemed like to hit you as intriguing right before we went to the break.
Yes, good word.
And there are two metaphors that come to mind for me, and one is a prism. And we've all seen prisms. And the idea behind a prism is that you shine white like sunlight through it, and it breaks the sunlight up into the entire spectrum. And I have one of those hanging in my dining room, and it sort of swings around and catches the sunlight as it comes in and puts these rainbow-colored dots all over the room, which is very pretty. And I like that it's pretty, but I also love that the sunlight is the one. There's one beam of sunlight coming in, but there's a lot in it. And by going through the refraction in the prism, we get to see the individualized components of it. This is red, this is green, this is blue, this is orange, this is indigo, this is the entire spectrum that's available there. And it divvies up the one into spots that show up looking different, even though they're all part of that one, that one ray of sunshine. And that is a wonderful metaphor for the difference between individualized and separate. So that's the rainbow part. And the raindrop part is, you can imagine, there's a rainstorm that's going on, and these droplets are falling out of the clouds, and there's a whole process that they go through, and turning into ice and then turning into water and whatever on the way down. But we've all been, in a rainstorm before, and those are individual droplets. You can watch the puddle and you can see the different droplets in the puddle. Or the ocean. You like the ocean. When the droplet falls into the ocean, what changes?
Nothing.
Well, it's no longer an individualized droplet, but it is still exactly what it was before it hit the surface. So those are two different expressions of exactly the same thing, and it's just what's changing is the context. So it started out being part of the climate, the meteorological experience that was going on. It started out being vapor, then it turned into rain, then it turned into the ocean. It's still water. And to whatever extent there was individuality in that one droplet of water, that individuality has merged into a different expression, but whatever was true of the droplet is still true. It just doesn't have sides anymore.
I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of the creation story where, and as you were saying it, I'm thinking, okay, the creation story is that God created us after God's own image. So every part of us is some reflection of God in some way. And then there was down the road in the story, there's the breath of God, which is the life and everything else that is contained in it. So it's really difficult for me to see separateness, but I can see individualization in the sense that in the creating of the human, what's the point in rubber stamping it? Okay, we can create it, but there's a little bit of difference in the personality and stuff like the refraction. I have a vase in a window. It has all different colors and it's sun, yes, but each one of those little things are different that it shines through. And so it feels to me like that's who we are. We're all those different colors and flavors, but there's still a sameness about us. Maybe the material is the same, as in a tapestry or glass or whatever. And let me just say where this is coming from. There's so much unrest in the United States.
There is.
And I'm trying, and it's working. I'm reconciling all of this to my belief. And I have to do that. I have to set my feelings aside so that I can see spirit. I can see God in this, and everything that I believed, does it all, when I lay it juxtaposed or lay it across, does it still come out the same? And it's hard, but there's behavior and what have you that to me is unrecognizable to myself or you or what I would see as God. But then there are other things, that my psychology nuggets of my psychology says, okay, well, what about this, Carol? Well, there's greed, there's fear, and all of that stuff, the human stuff, because we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So that stuff we have to cope with, and that's what makes it make sense to me. It's,
Yep.
it's coming through the lens of all of that, all that we are, including those things that are human. Some are frailties, some are strengths. And I don't have the same fears as somebody else might have. And somebody might say, well, why? Why don't you? Because you're threatened just like everybody else. Well, in my history, as a black woman, I've been a black person, a black female, then black woman. Those are three separate stages, my whole life. So this stuff that people are afraid of, I've already had to deal with that. So I feel very free to see things in a different light because I'm not afraid of all that stuff that others are afraid of. It's always been.
There you
Do you
go.
know what I
And
mean? Yeah.
yeah, and in that way, you are individualizing the infinite because you're taking a bigger picture than what other people might feel confined to or might assume that you're confined to. So you said something really interesting about created in the image and likeness of God. And it made me think about whose idea of the image and likeness of God. If we're created in the image and likeness of God, is it based on what we think God is? It can't be. It has to be based on what God thinks God is.
I think, and my response to that is it's maybe reverse engineering it because we can't, to me, it's the totality of what I can see that is God and recognizing there's more than that which I see. And I'm open to that. But what I'm looking at right now is as much God as I can see. And what's the problem here? The problem is the vessels or the stuff that comes with the human experience that's, got things a little bit shook up. But on the other side, that's all external. That's going to be dealt with. I'm trying to keep my eye on what is unchangeable and what is, do you understand what I mean?
Oh, I do. And actually, the other thing that I was thinking about was we have currently our theology is a God that is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, knows everything, is everywhere, is everything, and omniactive. That's not always been the story of God. You go back to the ancient Romans or Greeks. They had a bunch of different gods, and they were pretty dysfunctional. They were doing things that you wouldn't really consider to be godlike. Picking fights with each other and hiding things and stealing stuff. And I mean, there's all manner of dysfunctional behavior. So perhaps when we are made in the image and likeness of God, we have different aspects. We have our Apollo and our Zeusness and, our the other aspects of us, our Narcissus. And we get to act that out and have a human expression of that divine quality that might not be, all harp music and streets paved with clouds.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No. Well, okay, so so let's get into the human space again. No, it's not all harps and stuff like that. I don't think that there might be, but okay, we'll figure that out when we get there. But as humans, we have imagination. And, you have to forgive me because I just came off of several hours of Neville. So,
Oh, okay.
so the word imagination is coming up in my mind. But each of us, and I'm going back to the word personality and all the little aspects that make me who I am, my personality as opposed to somebody else's, doesn't change the fact that God is in us, but it colors or changes the way God appears as God expresses through me. Now, in my imagination, I can freely imagine God however I choose. And if I choose to separate God into all these other odd gods, then that has nothing to do with the actual reality of the one. It's my personal Carolism imagination that takes me in that off direction. And it's the same imagination that is taking several individuals off in an off direction in the country right now. I don't see it as any different. So it allows me to be very grounded and say, we've all been here before in different scenarios. My definition of God is the Anselmian definition of God. God is that than which nothing greater can be conceived. So you guys screwing it up out there, you know, okay, I know that there is a power greater than we are. I am, you are. And that's it. And I'll wait. You know, I think we used the term collateral damage, I think, last week. I regret that. I regret that there is already collateral damage. But as leaders of this belief that we have, I trust that there is power in the collective consciousness. I trust that. How long it's going to take, I don't know, but that's what I think.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And the image and likeness of God, I think there are two pillars that we get to look at that way and to zero ourselves in. And the first one is it is that highest, most idealized power that we can imagine, as you were speaking of, that which is nothing else is bigger. And tie that together with the golden rule of love thy neighbor as thyself. Whatever it is that I think God can create for me, am I okay with God creating that for and as other people? And that goes completely against grabbing power or the goodies or getting into some sort of a power differential. Because as soon as we want the same thing for other people that we want for ourselves, it levels everything out. And I think that brings it to a level of the divine. That is God showing up. And I think that if we use that as a guidepost, it can be pretty obvious when it's happening. And it can also be pretty obvious when it's not.
Yeah, and I always, again, this is the psychology from whatever coming back saying, okay, but there's stuff in the human nature, for lack of a better reference right now. There is fear, and fear is the one that jumps up at me the most every time I look at this situation. So what are people afraid of? And you can figure it out. I mean, it's not rocket science what people are afraid of.
Yeah.
And then there's greed. So that's something that has to be worked out on an individual internal level, as opposed to wanting to others to treat you, wanting us to be treated the same way because we care. I think fear distances people from their compassion. So they are, and I probably sound like I'm being compassionate because I am. Certain people are not in a place right now that they can even reach for that level of understanding. They can't do it. And it's no different than, people are saying so-and-so's awake and they have evolved. All of this, it happens when it happens, So the little powers that be right now are just so overwhelmed with fear, greed, and all the rest of that stuff. I can't expect them to see what is real. I can't expect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
But,
is,
you
it is
know,
hard. It is hard to be looking towards the divine when you're lying in a hole with your hand over your head, hoping that the explosions are going to stop.
yeah, you hope, but, you know, I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that when I have been on the wrong track, like going 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction, eventually I get tired and just peter out, pass out, or whatever. It cannot go but so far
Yeah.
because there is order in the universe. You just cannot oppose it, but for so long.
Right. Oh, it's possible to just have an interesting run while it's going on. Interesting. Yeah. The Chinese have a curse. May you live in interesting times. So these times are certainly interesting. Let's take
Yeah.
another break, and we'll come back. We'll do a prayer, and this is going to be about acknowledging our individuality and claiming our oneness with the divine. Are you ready to get results? Now, that's not a rhetorical question. Are you ready to get results? RUR2GR. That's actually the abbreviation for the steps in a practical prayer: recognition, unification, realization, gratitude, and release, with a couple of extra steps in there in case some doubt creeps in along the way. RUR2GR. This class is about the prayer technique that's common to all of the spiritual practices and religions in the most effective prayers that they have. And by effective, I mean that the prayer works. It actually creates a change in the experience of the person doing the prayer. It gets a result. We're going to begin with theory, and then we're going to take it into practice. By the end of the class, you will have your very own practical prayer that will help create transformation in your life.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchiony.
We've been having a wonderful conversation about the distinction between individualized expressions of the infinite and a sense of separation or being separate. And I think what we've covered is that both are possible. We can experience life as being separate from one another, of knowing that my physicality ends here and something else starts outside of there, and also the awareness that there is one power and presence and we're all part of that same one. So let's do a prayer. Let us do a prayer where we get to connect with our awareness of the infinite, where we get to become even more attuned to that divine power and presence that is within. Because it's a both and. We are each individualized expressions of the one. We are each using that one infinite creative power. We are each expressing that one divine love. We are each thinking with that one divine mind in a way that is particular and specific to us. That's just the way it works. And the prayer is to acknowledge that there is one power, one presence, one love, one source of everything. That one is sharing itself not with its creation, but as its creation. In the beginning, there was nothing but the one. There was that infinite divine presence. Whether it's the story of God in Genesis, of there was darkness and void, and God said, "Let there be." And the law started responding, "And there is. Let there be light, and there is light." The same story in quantum physics. In the beginning was the singularity and the Big Bang, and it began exploding and expanding and unfolding and interacting and reacting with itself to create everything that we know and everything that we experience in this manifest universe. The same story, told in different language on different timelines, but both point to the inescapable truth that there is one. Since the very beginning of time, there is one divine power and presence, one love, one source, one energy that is and has been sharing itself as its creation. Everything is that one, taking its own particular form. So everything that exists anywhere is part of that one and has to have come from that one. all of the energy, all of the matter, all of the intelligence, all of the love that exists anywhere in the universe is that one divine presence revealing itself. And since I know that one of the things that has been revealed is me, I am here, each of us is here, and that means that we are that one expression unfolding in our own particular and specific way. So we all have that in common. We are all not just ideas in the mind of the infinite. We are the infinite taking form as us. Individualized and particularized. The particles that make up our bodies are distinct from the particles that make up other bodies. We are aware of our physicality. We are aware of our identity. We are aware of ourselves. We are aware of our relationship with other aspects of creation. So as we experience that separation, we can understand it to be the distinction of what the divine is presenting itself as me, as opposed to what the divine is expressing itself as someone else or something external. Those both can be true. Our senses can tell us that we are separate, and our awareness and our understanding can tell us that we are one. And there is always the opportunity for that divine power and presence to unfold through everything that we're doing, through everything that the people who surround us are doing, through all of the events and activities. That one is always poised and ready to create something new and wonderful. It is love unfolding. It does not have to unfold as a catastrophe or a disaster or a problem. It can certainly unfold as love and harmony and peace and uplift for us and everyone around us. So on behalf of each one who's listening, I claim that experience of uplift, of harmony, of peace of mind, of love unfolding, of good and more good pressed down and overflowing. And I know that that is as possible as anything else. So that is what I'm claiming. Inviting that infinite creative power that creates everything to be creating this goodness now. That is the invitation. And I let that invitation loose into the same creative law that has been creating since the very beginning of time. And I know without any question whatsoever, it is creating this now for and through and as each of us. And so I let it be. I speak this word, I let it go, and I know it is. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marchiony and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com.
Where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
And that is the Practical Prayer Podcast, episode number 187.
I can't believe it.
Oh,
187.
believe it. Yeah, 187. Here we are, still at it. Tenacious. Tenacious we are. Thank you to everyone who's joining us on New Thought Media Network. It is wonderful to have you with us. I think we were recorded last week because I had a thing to do, and then we were off the week before. So it's nice to get back in the groove and talk to all y'all. And just a reminder that if you have a comment or a prayer request or a suggestion, you can put it into the comments on the social media if you're watching live. And if not, you can go to the website at BeTheLight.com, be-the-light.com.
Is that over here?
And I'm done clicking for today. There's a section on the website for the podcast, and you can submit your request or question or suggestion there as well. And there's all sorts of possibilities that are unfolding, and it is completely possible they're unfolding in a way that's as good as you can imagine.
Yeah, it's going to unfold really well. It really is.
And we're just going to leave it at that, and we'll see you guys on New Thought Media Network next week.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center Ottawa, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center, Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.